Well, hello there, and welcome back to another episode of Help My Business is Growing, a podcast where we explore how to grow and build a business that is healthy and sustainable. I'm your host, Kathy Svitina. As a business owner, you know firsthand how much time and energy goes into building a company, and you probably dedicated years of your life to seeing it grow and prosper. But eventually, one time in the future, the time will come when you will want to retire, start something new, or even pass it on to the next generation. So, what happens when it's time to exit your business? Is your business going to be ready? But most importantly, are you going to be emotionally ready to let go? Something that we don't really talk about as much when we are talking about exiting the business. And you will see that if once you start exploring this topic, there's a lot of information out there how to actually do it in terms of financial valuations, how to find a buyer, where to find them, and all that stuff that goes into the process of exiting the business, but not that much into being emotionally ready to let go of such an important part of your life. And as a quick reminder, all of the episodes on this podcast, including this one, come with timestamps for topics that we discuss, and each one has its own blog post as well. You can find all of the links and the detailed topics in this episode's show notes. Joining me for this podcast is John Ovrom. He is the president and founder of Exit Consulting Group, which provides consulting and brokerage services for business owners to prepare them for and execute their exit. He's also the author of Exit and Answers, Navigate Your Business Exit Like an Expert. John specializes in creating roadmaps for business owners anticipating a transition, whether they're transferring the business to family or employees or selling to a third party. Join us. Welcome to the show, John.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, good afternoon.
Yeah, exactly.
So, John, as business owners, we spend years and years pouring our hearts and souls into building a company. And there's so much time and energy that goes into this. But a lot of owners rarely think about that at some point, this shall end as well as everything else, if I get a little bit philosophical here. But no matter how successful your business is, there will come a time when you're ready to move on to either explore new opportunities, or maybe you're just ready to retire and just not work anymore. And you wrote a book called Navigate Your Business Exit Like an Expert. And as someone, as myself, who reads a lot of business books, I was pleasantly surprised how actionable it is, and two, how holistic it is. Because there's a lot of books out there that give you the how-to, the process of exiting, like an M&A part of it, but they never talk about the personal and the emotional side of exiting the business for the owner, which I think is such a huge missing piece, especially in the small business world. Let's talk about this. What made you include that in the book?
I've been a serial entrepreneur, and I had no idea when I went to sell my company that the personal side was going to be the tough part. I just thought it was going to be like selling my house, selling a car, selling a business. Like, how hard can it be, right? I mean, people do it. So you call someone, sell it, and it was not. And no one told me that. No one told me how I was going to personally be associated with this business beyond it just being a tangible asset. And so now, 18 years later, helping hundreds of business owners, I've learned that I'm normal, that I'm a typical business owner and that the goal is for people to understand that selling your business is much more than the transaction. And that only became relevant as I saw a pattern. I thought I was just kind of weird, but to be honest, it is really like losing your identity, and it's losing what makes you relevant, because as a business owner, that's how I value myself. Tom Brady values himself as a football player. He's still out there because that's all he knows, what he's been doing. This is all I do, is run companies. That's what I love. And you're not going to get LeBron James walking off a basketball court without him losing his identity. And so business owners have that same feeling, and just no one ever talked about it. So that's why I'm very much passionate about making sure business owners understand that it's about owner readiness more than it is about business readiness.
So when you were going through this process yourself, and as your clients go through this process, when do you think it's the moment that it really hits you, hey, this is going to be a major change? Is that as before you basically sign on the dotted line to help to have someone help you exit the business? Or is it as you going through the process? Or is it really the majority of the feelings come up? Everything is signed, delivered, and sealed, and the money is in your bank account. And then Monday comes and you're sitting there and you're like, I have no idea what I just did.
I would call it hiking the mountain range of the Rockies. Every time you get up to the top, you're like, okay. And then you see another hill and you're like, oh, I got to go up another mountain. It's a roller coaster, to be honest, right? Because you have this desire to leave. Sometimes it's mental, emotional, sometimes it's physical reasons why you're leaving, but
Mhm.
you think you want to get out. When you experience that process, then you actually put yourself out on the market. And then you're kind of nervous and excited because, hey, someone might think everyone thinks their kid is beautiful. So I'm going to put my kid out there on the market.
True.
And then, they sit around and go, well, maybe they're not as good of an athlete. Maybe they're not as smart, so you kind of get a little humbleness associated with, but you're like, okay. Or someone's excited about it. And then you get excited, but then you have to start thinking about, okay, then you start talking price and terms and taxes and what am I going to do next? And then you bring lawyers and CPAs in and kind of go through that. And then you fight through all those emotions like, okay, I think I'm ready. And then the triggering of signing something and saying, okay, here we go. We've been working together. Are you ready to do this? Now, I've been married for 35 years now, so I can't say I know the single market, but it's very much like, hey, you put yourself on the market as a single person. Anybody want to date me? Hey, I'm going to go out there and I'll just date you specifically. So we're going to be exclusive. So let's go exclusive with just you and let's see if you will buy it. All right, I think we've gone through it all. Let's go get married. Let's get at the altar. And you're sitting at that altar going, my life is about to change.
Yep.
So every one of those has hurdles. But I would tell you realistically, as it relates to the exit, it really depends if it's out of cause or out of convenience. Okay. So when people are exiting for cause, whether it's they're sick, their spouse, they're financially can't invest in it more, they're disabled, they're fried. If they're looking to get out for a cause, my
Mhm.
husband died. The ability to walk away from that is easier than out of convenience, right? If you're just saying, well, I'm turning 65 and I think I'm supposed to get out, right? A lot of these things that you think emotionally, you start to process. And sometimes it's like, well, but this is what I love to do. But they don't really know that until they go through the process. It's just their spouse or their kids are saying, you need to be getting out. I mean, I get called by spouses and kids saying, I need you to get my dad to stop working. Can you help? No. Why? Because he thinks that dying at his deathbed while he's working is the right answer. And I said, okay, dying while you're working, doing what you love is an exit. What's wrong with the exit? His exit doesn't have to be what you think his exit should be. And there is no right exit. There's kind of 5 ways that we kind of help people think about their exiting because most people think of an exit is either I'm selling my company and I'm selling my job. And in reality of that is you could sell your company and still stay on as an employee, or you can quit your job, hire someone in place and keep the company. Or you could do both. You could sell the company and a job. Those are all different exits. And then you can inside those you can liquidate it, you can give it away, you could sell it to your partner, sell it to your key employees, you can give it to your kids. You can quit, hire a CEO, run it in perpetuity, and just leave it for the estate, just returning mailbox money. Or you can stay on until you die. I'm totally okay with that. All we ask is get life insurance. So when you do die, your widow doesn't have to take care of it. Your widow or your kids or the state, if you don't even have a trust, they're not the ones who have to deal with it. So if you want to be that business owner that stays at your desk, don't leave it to your widow or to your kids to deal with. Leave some money set aside so you can hire professionals to do it. That would be my only advice to a business owner who wants that their exit plan is stay at my desk. And we have quite a few of those. We call them Viking funerals, right? Like they're the ones who want to go out in the battlefield and they want to die as the king of the thing in the front with their shields and everyone's battling. I want to die on the field. I am Viking. Oh, great. Do it.
I love that term Viking funeral for the business owner. And it is true when we have discussions about the businesses, The majority of them is, do you either sell it to another company or to an individual that gets absorbed into their company, or you just stay on. And you gave a lot of good options where, you can be an employee in the business. You can
Yeah.
just basically demote yourself from the CEO to owner into an actual person who just does things in the business, and then have that until you get bored of that or you just want to retire completely. Or you could be an advisor and have a CEO run the day-to-day operations, and you're just overlooking at it from a strategic point, and you get compensation that way. I really like that distinction.
I think the biggest challenge business owners see is that their business is them. And if there was anything we could give them any advice is it's not them, it's their child. Stop being a helicopter parent. Let this business grow and get out of its way. And sometimes being a good business owner means you step aside and you hire a new CEO because your best is technology or your best is on the R&D side or your best is sales. Let somebody else execute because it's getting too big. And so many business owners feel like, no, it's my company. When the reality of it is, although they are your kids, you don't own them. Okay. Let them
Right.
grow up, go to high school, go to college, get married, do their own thing. And if you look at your business more as a role, as an opportunity, just because your kids get married doesn't mean you lose them. It's just a different life. So just because you're not running it day to day and you don't have your thumb on everything and you're not the man or the woman in charge of the whole place, it's okay. It's a company. And if we can get business owners to understand that, because the challenge in exiting is they don't feel relevant when they leave a company when they are the company. They have put themselves in place where they're a solopreneur and the owner is in the middle and everybody reports to them so they consider themselves valuable. And they say they're doing it for the sake of the company, but in reality, business owners are doing it for themselves because that's their way of being in control. So if you can find something that allows the vision and concept that the company can be on its own and you are relevant without that business, you can have an exit. But it's the challenge of separating yourself from your business in order to really achieve your exit.
Yeah, and I see that a lot when I work a lot with the growing businesses, and you can see that transition of when you have to let go and start having the documented processes and get yourself out of the middle. And it's painful because I like to also think about business, as you said, almost as a child. It is yours, but it's a completely separate entity. It's almost like its own person. So even if the business is growing, if you're always treating it like a baby, it's really not going to grow much. It's always going to be dependent on you. And as the baby goes through stages, you have the baby stage, the toddler stage, and you have the teenage stage, which is the rebellious stage, obviously. And then the young adult, like in every single stage, it needs things that are different from you. And your employees need things that are different in every single stage.
The kids are younger, they need you, but then they listen to their teachers more than us. And then they listen to your coaches more. And then they get to the phase that they listen to their knucklehead friends more, which is always the worst stage. But then, then they come back to actually thinking you might know something. Then they come back to listening to parents again. But part of that phase is the same way as your employees. They need other people besides you because you're not right. I was told my client, as I was told my employees, just because I own the company doesn't make me right. It just means I'm an owner. It doesn't even make me a CEO. I just called myself a CEO because I owned it. That doesn't mean I'm a CEO. It's just a title. The reality is that I can be a CEO of a small company, but not of a big company. And when you're thinking about your exit and when you're growing your company, visualize the concept that this is a child that has its own social security number, because it does. It has its own federal ID number that pays its own taxes, and it has its own bank account. It can do everything all by itself. Don't make it about you. Make it about the business and how can you support that child and find its passions. And whether it's in sports or music or science, whatever that one is, find a way to support it and grow it and build it. And then you just get to ride along with it instead of you trying to be the person in it. And then you can actually build it to an exit.
Is there anything else that, as you're going through this emotionally, trying to separate yourself from the business, anything that else that has been particularly helpful to you or to the clients that you work with that's helped them with this emotional journey and preparing themselves for exiting the business?
We spend a lot of time just helping people understand that they're normal, that the feelings that they're experiencing are normal, that most business owners, particularly G1 founders, have control issues, right? They have a tendency to want to be in control, and letting go control is a big deal for them, even if it's to a kid, even if it's to it. Now, if you have a partner, so if you and I are partners, Kathy, then we're used to building our company together. Kind of, I lean on you, you lean on me, and so partners have a little better chance of exiting out because they're more willing. The solopreneur drives everything, that says it's my name on the building, it's my name on the trucks, I'm the one who did all of this, really, really hard. So letting them know that it's normal, that it is going to be hard, and that you need to find something else to do. And this is my biggest piece of advice: is find a hobby outside of business. Don't let business be all of your friends, all of your hobbies, all of your social events is always around business. Because if that's all you know, you're never going to walk away. And finding something that is passionate, because I am an entrepreneur. I've learned that that's just what drives me every day. That's okay. I can't take that out of me, but I can say I can find other things to do in order to fulfill that same itch, that scratch that itch that I have to keep driving. So if they can think about, as business owners, that the business is a child and don't be a helicopter parent, and that they're not going to be in your life your whole life, and you need to be able to live without your children when they go away, think about the same way as you can do a business, would be by far the biggest things. And then when they're the ones parent at the fence crying because their kid is going to kindergarten and leaving them for the first time, it's going to be okay, parents. Your business is going to be fine. You're going to be your business. And I always thought that the business wasn't going to be fine without me, because that's my way of self-rationalizing. I work all the time. I need to. And my team said, John, you're going to take off for a week. Don't call in. Don't worry. I was like, oh, yeah. Well, I'll probably check in because my clients need me. He said, John, we've got your clients. Your clients don't need you. You need your clients. And I was like, what? They go, think about it, John. It's a week. We can handle this. You are the one who needs them to need you. So the reason you check in with them and what fills your batteries is that you feel you're helping them and that they need you. So you need to check in so they know that you need them. Wow. That was a wow moment for me,
Yeah.
where I was thinking I was doing it for them, when in reality, the reality is I love what I do and I love helping people. And it's, what else am I going to do to fill myself up if they don't need me anymore? Like, what am I going to do if all my clients that I'm counting on don't call me? Well, you better go find something else. Pretty powerful in the world of exit, because now the company is no longer about me. It's about our clients and taking care of our clients. And go figure out, John, how you're going to feel relevant outside of this and build the company so it can continue to build and grow and support the client needs. And you find your own needs outside of your clients. And I was like, ooh, that one's, when you love it, right? You're sitting around, it's like telling LeBron James, you don't
It's
think
your
it's
whole world.
basketball. Yeah, and that's the hardest part. And it's growing and it's successful and you're having fun and people are good. And so it feeds your soul. And then you want me to leave? What? Really? Why would I leave? That's the great question.
Yeah, it comes down to too much of a good thing. It's not anything that's too much of it. Even if you're drinking water, water's good for you, but drinking too much of it, you could still die from it. So
Yeah.
you mentioned something with the employees, and I'm interested to hear about from your perspective and from the clients that you work with. We talked about the emotional side for the owner. Obviously, they have to deal with that on their own way. But how does that reflect the emotional and personal side of the employees when they have been in such close contact with the owner, and the owner tells them, you know what, I am exiting the business, and the chances are they're probably not going to be here in the next 6 months. How does that affect the team dynamic, if it does?
Well, no one likes change. Human nature. People go sit at the same pew at church every day. Every week they sit at the same place, even though there's no marked, right? You go to the restaurant, order the same food because that's the reason you're going to that restaurant, even though they've changed the menu, right? So going to an employee and say, I'm going to leave, is very unsettling. That's why you have to do this over a period of time. You have to be able to devalue yourself as the business owner, because really what they want to do is they want to know that nothing's going to change. If I'm not around for 6 months and I haven't, like what I've told my clients is, you need to be able to take a month off. Like, when was the last time you took a month off? And they, I've never taken it. Well, then how do you think you're going to, if you don't feel the company is going to survive, how is somebody else going to take this company over? Like, you need to build this company into a path where you can take a month off. In fairness, I haven't taken more than a week off in 25 years. So I'm not saying I'm good at that, but I'm saying I'm a better
But
coach
here
than
it
I am a
is.
player.
And I think here's the distinction is whether you want to or whether you can, because there's two different
Sure.
things. You can take a month off and the world's not going to fall down, but you just don't want to. Or, you can because you don't have the right people that will be able to
Right.
support the business. So I think those are two different conversations of whether you can, but you don't want to, or whether you can't because you really cannot.
But I justify it, to be honest, right? I'll self-rationalize. Well, you guys couldn't do it. And they're like, actually, you can go take a month off. And I'm like, no. And they're like, no, you can. And I'm like, and they're like, try it. And I'm like, oh, practice what you preach, John. And I'm like, oh, my wife's like, yeah, let's go. And I'm like, oh, like, it's fascinating, right?
Yeah.
That's when you start learning it's about you and it's not about the business. When your company matures to a place where you've got good management team and you got people there and they're going like, go, enjoy. We got it. They actually feel empowered. It's like a teenager going to college, right? They kind of get this little, I'm taken care of because I'm in college, but I'm kind of this adult. I'm sub-adulting because I get to make my own choices, but really food, board, everything else is taken care of. So the employees are like, yeah, go play because mommy and daddy aren't around. So, we got it. And you're like, oh, geez. And to be honest, I feel like I can, but I do personally struggle with the idea. And that's why I know it's personal. That's where business owners have to understand that exiting is much more than whether or not I can sell it and whether it's valuable or whether it is really, are you willing to walk away? And
Mhm.
have you structured the company where it is a child that is not been a 30-year-old in your basement that has eaten Oreos and cookies their whole life because you've totally helicopter parented them? Or do they have smarts and intelligence and learned some bruises and figured out their way and they can be fine? It'll be different, but they'll still be fine.
Yeah.
What are you building?
And is there anything that you can, even though, as we've talked about, the employees are telling you, go, 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 but when you tell them that you're exiting, that you're not just for a month, maybe 2 months or whatever it might be, that it is essentially forever. Is there anything that you can do that you can alleviate that nervousness and that in terms of change management that you can support them with your decision?
Yes, I would say, like all change, if you do it over a longer period of time, the longer you have and the slower you turn the boiling water up on them, they don't know that they're boiling, right? If you walk in and go, okay, I'm done, that's not well. But I told my team 5 years ago that I'm building an exit and I want out. And they said, you're only 50. Like, what are you doing? I go, you misunderstand my definition of an exit. My definition of an exit is I don't want to have ownership. I just want to be an employee. This company is growing. It's bigger than me. I just like helping clients and I have to run a company now. Like, I have to deal with people and processes and really what I want to do is I'm just a service provider who likes to help business owners. I just want to go back to my wheelhouse. So hired a new CEO, brought in a CFO. They're the future. My whole goal is you guys is they have the ability to scale this company. They are scaling type people. They are management people. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a street fighting cowboy who just wants to get up and fight every day. That's not how you build a company to be. And so we want multiple locations. If we want to do these things, I'm not the person. So for me, my exit is I want to leave the ownership up for somebody else to incentivize them, and I get to be an employee. And I just want to be able to do what I want to do. That's my exit. And that's real because I've learned what I know. I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to sit on a porch or go fly fishing or play tennis or something like that. That's just not who I am. But I feel like I'm getting in the way of the success of the company and that the company can keep going. And so I will exit in that way. And that is real. And that's just like my employees saying they're going to quit at some point. I'm the same way, you guys. The company needs to grow up and get married and go on its own. And so I think really, as long as you're authentic with who you are and communicating that, everybody understands. I'm setting it up for success. I'm not leaving, I'm leaving ownership. But in the end, Everyone has to make their decisions on if they want to be part of this and if they like the new owners. If they don't like the new C-suite, understand things are going to change. Okay, that's how business works, but that's how we mature and that's how we grow up. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's kind of how I've dealt with it is the longer you give them to process and be okay and give them the opportunity to succeed and grow. And as long as you put the business first, and as long as they know that you're trying to set this company up for success and your true heart is, I want you to be a healthy company and I want you to be part of it. And this is how I'm going to now participate in it because this is my best wheelhouse.
Yep.
They're smart people, right? They understand that there's a difference between a business owner only looking out for themselves and saying, I'm just going to do this. And those that are saying, I want to build a future for this company and for you.
And you know what, as you were talking about the goal of being an employee in the business versus the owner of the business, I wonder how does that, when that happens, you're now, before you were an owner, now you're on equal footing with the other employees. How does that change the team dynamic and how does that really work in practice, not in theory? Have you seen people who have done that, have done it successfully? And has it been difficult for them at the beginning?
I have seen more failures than successes. I find, and we'll see this a lot in internal sale transactions where, hey, I'm going to sell it to my kid or I'm going to sell it to some key employees. And they don't really have any money, so they got to pay over a period of time. So the business owner wants to stay on. And so the business owner, though, all of the obligation lands on the business owner in my situation and me and how I demote myself and respect and handle the process. My challenge as an entrepreneurial business owner is in order to grow and scale a company and make it from owner operator to professionally managed, we actually have to put in systems. And I'm not a systems guy. That is not my skill set. But in order to scale, you got to put in systems. And so agreeing to this is where you're trying to go and supporting them is really all on the burden of the person stepping down. The dad has to understand that if you're going to step down and you're going to elevate your son or your key employees to this position, as the owner, you have to put yourself below them and answer to them. What's your exit, Kathy? You're advising all these business owners. What's going to be your exit, Kathy? Tell me what your strategy is.
But no, really, the strategy for me right now, I mean, this is a very young business. I think of it as a very young business still, even though for some people it might not be. It's 3 years, 3.5 years now that I've had it. And realistically, I would like to see myself as an employee because I do particularly enjoy working with clients. I love the analysis, I love the strategy work around it. And I don't have any particular wants right now to grow it into a multi-million-dollar company that has all these locations. For me, it would be great if someone can run the operational side and I have people in a marketing department and I am doing the actual customer delivery and I have someone oversee everything else. I mean, that's how I would like to structure the company. How that works practically, I am not sure yet, but it is true. You kind of have to eat your own food as well. So I am struggling as other business owners. Like, how do I make this so that it's not completely dependable on me? And the way how I'm solving this right now is I'm always looking everything from the businesses, the processes and the systems. So that's like my Bible. If we can put in a process and the system in there, and what is it that in whatever particular item it is in that process of systems, do I have to touch it or can other people touch it? And I'm a huge fan of, and people know on this podcast, delegation and outsourcing as much as possible.
That is an absolute great piece of advice, right? The game in service providing business like yours is right. When you're in professional services, the reason you're in it is because you're so passionate about helping. And the same way as I'm in it, whether you're a doctor, a veterinarian, a financial planner, a CP, I mean, they're passionate about helping. And that's where it becomes a challenge in building out systems when you spend the time in the business or on the business. And how do I balance those two things? Because you still got to get your bill, you still got to pay the bills, and you still have to, and it's a challenge. It is definitely a challenge. But I would say without the goal, ultimately, your exit could be, so here's my advice to you as an exit. if you're not going to build the business out as a large liquidity event, then the best exit for you would be is take money out every year and build your reserves. So many business owners think that there's going to be some big liquidity event, so they're constantly
Mhm.
investing back in their company. My comment is that's not an exit. An exit is I've put in 20 grand, 50 grand a year for the last 20 years and I'm good now. So I can just shut this thing down. I can hand this over to somebody and I achieved my goals. I got the freedom, the flexibility, everything I wanted. And that is still a great exit. I would say people believe that they need a liquidity event in order to call it an exit. When the reality of it is an exit is that you're leaving in your terms the way you want to, and you can live happily ever after and be very proud. I've had an 82-year-old in here last week that said he thinks it's about time to start thinking about an exit. He's still got a good 10 more years on him that he wants to go. He has things he wants to go do.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think 82 is a good time to start planning your exit. But he's been happy doing his service providing work, doing what he loves to do. He gets his time off. He's got plenty of money. His kids are fine. His grandkids. He's like, but I think I need to figure out what I want to do with when I'm, if I just want to shut it down or not. Like, great. Just do it before your spouse, your widow, or your children have to figure it out. So,
And the other thing with the service providers too is because you can think of it as you don't want to might not sell the entire business, but it could be that you have certain assets that you've built over the years. It could be that you had a customer list that can be valuable to another provider and you could sell that. So it doesn't have to be that you sell the entire business as one package, but it could be that you slice it up in different assets that you built over the years and you sell those off, right?
yeah, or you bring partners in. A lot of service providers bring younger partners in, right? So attorneys will have a younger attorney come in and start transitioning doctors, dentists. They start transitioning clients over. So and then they work less hours. So then that business becomes a longer term transition as well. So again, the idea of an exit is I have to sell my business and done in a year and I get a check is just not true. That is not the only exit. There are plenty of wonderful exits. Just know that it's going to be tough. It's not going to be easy, when you do it. And the sooner you can try to keep figuring out what that looks like and aim towards that when you build out your business model, then the easier that transition will be. So, when was the last time you took 2 weeks off, Kathy?
I actually, believe it or not, just took it. We're recording this in April, in March, but I took it in February. I took 2 weeks off.
Nice.
However,
Thank you. Now, how did it? Yes.
I will not take a full credit for it. I did still work a little bit while I was on vacation. So,
Well, I took a week off last week, but then I worked for a day and a half because I quote unquote had to. So my goal I've told my wife in 2024 I will take 2 weeks off. That is my goal, and then 2025 I'll take 3 weeks off. And I don't know. I'm kind of have some anxiety around all of this, but I got to practice what I preach, And if I'm ever going to get there, I have to try. So
yep.
I'm going to do 20. That's my commitment to you, Kat. I'll talk to you in the air that I took 2 whole weeks off. I mean, I still will work, but I'm just saying that I didn't show up to the office for 2 straight weeks.
I will hold you to it. I will call you next year
Good.
in
I tell it
2024
that
and I'll ask.
it's so hard when you're coaching people that you've got to do it yourself too, and it's really
Yep.
hard.
Yep. I know a business owner it's a husband and wife team, and they are taking their goal is to take 90 days every single year of vacation. So basically 3 months of vacation every single year. Originally, they started doing 3 months together, meaning they would work for 9 months and they would 3 months be off. But then they started splitting that up. And I think it's a really great goal to have if you can do a couple of weeks every single quarter. Also, as you're building the company too, and I'm going to start doing that more now because then I can see what are the systems, what are the processes that are breaking that I need to be a part of, and how can I outsource that or maybe automate it or delegate that out even more. But then the other thing that a lot of people forget about too is it tells you how much you're actually overworking that you don't need to be. You don't need to be doing a lot of the stuff that you're doing.
I know. But again, it's how you feel valuable and when you're helping. So again, it's yes, I agree. From a CEO owner, I don't need to. But as a John Ovrom service provider who fills his batteries by helping business owners get through these difficult times, it is what fills my batteries. And so that's kind of the catch 22, right? So that's where you have to separate John as an employee and John as an owner. And so this is where John, as the owner, can't be an owner for 2 weeks. I got to go on vacation. John, as an employee, but whatever you guys got to do, you got to do. And let's go find out where the wheels are coming off. Like you said, it's a great way of testing. Doesn't mean I can't take my 4 clients and help them, but everything else you guys ought to be able to handle. And you're like, yeah, but if you take my son or my daughter and you go screw them up, I'm gonna freaking come kid you, you know, like this is my baby. And so it is fascinating how emotionally I react to the concept of letting go. And I think that's the key piece in everything we're doing, Kathy, is making sure that the business owners understand that it will be emotional and it's okay. We're all normal. We all care. It's just because your heart's in the right spot and you're doing what you love.
Yep, exactly. So, John, we talked a lot about how to let go and what are some of the things that you can do. And there's a lot of good stuff in this episode. And we definitely pull out the curtains in our own businesses too. But, if someone's listening to this episode and say, okay, so now I want something actionable, like what is it if I am thinking of exiting my business, however that means for them? What is it that they can do in the next week or two to get them closer to that goal?
I think the number one step is to define what we call define the win. Like, why do you want to get out? Like, what's the triggering event for your exit? Is it an age? Is it a dollar amount you need to be retired? Like, why, when you're going to leave and why? Like, what is that event? Because most business owners just get up every day and street fight. We just get into our cage, we fight every day. And then next thing you know, it's freaking the end of Q1. And we're like, how did March already get here? When I could have sworn I just finished my time, I just got year end close. Like, I just, like, wow. And the reality of it is if you don't know what you're shooting for, you don't know what your end game is, you're never going to get there. Because when I meet with owners and I say, how far out are you? What do you think my number one answer is? What do you guess?
I would expect that you would want them at least 5 years out before they start, before the exit to start planning.
So when I interview owners and I say, when do you want to get out? They say this year. It's the number one answer. And I said, but how do we plan? Like, do you have enough retirement? Do you have the right people in place? What's your customer concentrate? Like, can we even do this? What are you going to do with your life next? The number one is 1 year. And my second answer that I get is I'm 5 years out. And the reason they say 5 years is it's close enough that they can say they see an end, but it's far enough they don't have to do anything about it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yep.
Every year they're 5 years out. They're like, yeah, my dad said, or my boss said he was going to sell me the company, but he's been telling me that every year. And now it's, every year he says he's 5 years out. And I go, yeah. Why does he want to change? You're taking over everything. You're helping him. He's like, you're making, like, why would he? Of course he's going to keep moving down the street. He's going to move the gold line all the time. So they're either like right now or they're 5 years because they don't want to deal with it. Those are my two numbers. So my comment is about the win is what's the triggering event? When I interview them, is it for cause or for convenience? And what are you going to do next? How are you going to fill your bucket? How are you going to feel relevant when you walk out of this business? And they need to figure that out. Because it could be, I want $5 million in after-tax cash. Great. Then putting money, or it could be when I turn 65. It could be lots of things. But find it and then build your path. Because if you don't set that line, you're never going to get there. That line's going to keep moving. And next thing you know, you'll be 65. You're going to call me and say, okay, I'm ready in a year. And you've not achieved your goal because you just got up and fought every day. So that would be my number one thing is what's your exit win? So Kathy, I'm going to call you in a week and you're going to tell me what your win is in your exit. And you're going to have that defined. Then you can start building your path to it. All right. That's the plan.
That's a great plan. I love that plan. All right, John, where can people find you?
best place is our website. Has a lot of information about us and how all of my contact information. We're at exitconsultinggroup.com. You can also go and get our book at exitananswers.com. Both of those have some great resources, great contacts, and happy to meet and talk to anybody.
Yeah, and as I've said at the beginning of the episode, it is an excellent, excellent book. So go get it if you can, and if that's of interest to you. All right. Thanks, John. It has been a very enlightening conversation, and I'm very grateful that you came on the show. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Kathy, so much.
Thanks so much for joining us on today's episode of Help My Business is Growing. And I hope that you found some helpful tips on how to exit your business. Because as we said, eventually that time will come, and it's never too early. It truly never is to start thinking about your exit strategy. Also, if you love this episode, you can find all of the timestamps, show notes, blog posts, and links on the website, newcastlefinance.us/podcast. And before I go, as always, I do have a little favor to ask. If you are listening to this on Apple Podcasts, if you could please go to the show and tap the number of stars that you think the show deserves, because this helps other people find it and gives us that Apple Podcast algorithm love that we need for people to find us. Thanks so much. Until next time.